Clair Obscur Expedition 33, I think, is a masterpiece, and I'm still at the very beginning of the game. Hello everyone, my name is Tomberry and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to make a quick video just on my first impressions after playing about 6 hours of Expedition 33. Let me tell you, I think this is like the birth child of almost every game that I have fallen in love with. Don't want to take too much of your time at the beginning of this video so that we can just get right into the nitty-gritty of what I think about in the game. But make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let me know, are you playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33 right now? I would love to know. And with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the story premise. I'm going to try my best to explain it, but I'm not reading anything in front of me, so I'm just going off of my head. But essentially, you are dropped into the world of Lumiere, where our characters begin. This city, first of all, is so beautiful. I literally felt like I walked into and had the same awe-inspiring feeling when I walked into Columbia for the first time in BioShock Infinite. I see so much influence from so many different games, but let me tell you, when a story really captures you, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 does that like times 100, at least in my opinion. You start off the game in this beautiful cinematic, and right from the get-go, they kind of explain that this world is kind of almost ruled by this figure called a paintress, and the paintress essentially paints a number that represents everybody's age within the world, and it's essentially the last year that they are going to live. The game starts off being at number 34, and then eventually it turns to 33. But our residents here essentially are celebrating something called what they call the gamage. The gamage is a reference and kind of explains that this is the day that people of the age that are painted will be having the last day of their lives. It starts off so, oh my gosh, melancholy, to be honest. You're already introduced to Gustav, who is one of our main characters, Maëlle, who eventually becomes one as well, and then later on you are meeting someone named Sophie. The intro and the prologue are just so well crafted. It was one of those things where, like, as soon as I dropped into the game, I just couldn't stop looking at everything. This game is so beautiful, and I can't stress enough that this is a game developed by 30 people, and it's a $50 game. And I literally, like, I might say that a few times throughout this video, but like 30 people, $50 game. Like, I honestly think that this game should be more, and I'm not even halfway through the game as is. But yeah, so we're set off on a journey with our characters, where we learn that Gustav, who is the first character that we start with, that he is losing the love of his life to the gamage, which is really, really sad. And unfortunately, after someone he loves dearly is gone from his life, he sets out on what we call an expedition. Gustav and Maëlle are going to be a part of Expedition 33, and essentially the expedition is just pretty much a group of people that volunteer to try and stop the paintress so that the cycle just stops. There's a lot of people within this world that express a lot of negative feelings. I mean, they've gone through this year after year, and still the paintress has not been stopped. So it can be understanding and really sad to see that these characters so quickly are not in the best of spirits. But you do have some people that try to look at the brighter side of things, and some people that want to volunteer to stop it, even though time and time again it seems that the expedition fails. Right from the get-go though, like, the story premise for me just really drew me in. Like, I am so intrigued to know what the paintress is, who is the paintress, why is the paintress doing what they're doing, how did it even begin altogether, like, what is happening. And even more interesting, as I've gone through the game a little bit, there are some characters that I have found that kind of talk about the paintress in a different light. I think as a player, you are kind of told that this paintress is possibly evil and like is ruining people's lives, but at the same time, I like met a character at some point, or I guess you could say an enemy, where he's saying that the paintress wants to lead him to the light. And I have no idea what that means as of right now. I'm sure I'll figure it out later. But now I'm like thinking, oh, maybe the paintress has its own reason as to why it's doing what it's doing. But there's so many like different things that just pop up in the story that are just so intriguing. And I just honestly cannot wait to find out. And I really hope, and I want to say that I promise you, if you just boot up the game for a little bit, that you will also be drawn in to the story as a whole. Now, really quickly, I just want to gush about the visuals and the graphics of this game. Oh my gosh, as soon as I was able to get away from the cinematic at the beginning during the prologue and play as Gustav, my jaw literally dropped. It does not do it justice. I'm streaming the game live on my Twitch channel and on YouTube as well. And I know for a fact that on live stream, it is not doing the game justice. I play on an OLED monitor, and this game is one of the most gorgeous games I've ever played, as well as definitely so far this year. And I am just like, every time I walk around and I'm in a new area of some sort, I can't help but just stare in awe of how beautiful and how well crafted that this game is. And just like, I'm at this new world right now called the Flying Waters, and just alone, I sit there thinking like, wow, who the heck was on this team to think of something so beautifully and well manicured, where it's just like, not only does it visually just look really nice with the graphics and everything, but just like the set pieces that are within each world. You have Lumiere at the beginning, you have the Spring Meadows, and then you have Flying Waters. And that's as far as I'm at right now. But just every single time, every little corner, every little thing that I see within this world, I just can't help but be like mind blown with how beautifully well crafted it is. The music has already taken a hold of me. I kid you not. And one of the best songs right now for me is as soon as you enter the game. It's in the first section of the prologue, and I believe the song's called Lumiere, which is kind of like the town's theme, I would put it. This song is so freaking catchy, and I couldn't help already be humming it while I was playing the game. After I played the game, I'm already doing it today. This is the second day that the game's been out, and I just cannot get that song out of my head, but it's so freaking good. But even there's like just such well-crafted music within the battle themes as well. Again, there's so much more music that I have not listened to yet, since I'm still at the beginning of the game. But oh my gosh, like for example, I noticed a track that plays when you fight these little mime characters. Which I have a feeling are gonna be like in every world, it seems, because I found one in Lumiere, I found one in the Spring Meadows, and now I think I'm probably gonna find one in Flying Waters. But dude, the accordion that is playing, the French styled music that I am hearing is just, it's so lovely, and I can't help but think that it's a banger as soon as I listen to it. But I'm just so excited to see the different aspects that this OST is going to have, because there's such somber melodies that really like drive up the dialogue for me. Oh. And especially like really silent moments within the game so far. And then there's like those kind of more peppy, more energetic songs that they use in the battle themes. But I just can't help but think that this OST, I haven't heard music this good in a really, really long time. Of course, there's other tracks and others, soundtracks that I've heard in video games that I do love. More recently, like Metaphor is a really good example, but this one just resembles the environment so well as you're progressing through the game. And I think that whoever worked on this is just like a genius, because it is so well put together in terms of what the game is not only trying to show you, tell you, but also what the environments are spreading across. Let's quickly go over the characters and the voice acting. So far, the main characters that I have been introduced to are Gustave, Lune, and Maëlle. These are going to be the first 3 characters that you have within your party, and I assume later on there's going to be more that we gather and more people that we meet, maybe from the expedition and maybe not from the expedition. I'm not really sure. These characters alone are so intriguing. From the get-go, you start as Gustave. You already feel a connection to him because you already see that he's lost something very important to him, and you understand why he's joining the expedition. And I feel for him even more when like I see the little kids of Lumiere like running up to him and expressing how much that they love him and hope that he comes back and adore him and almost idolize him. You can tell that Gustave has a big presence in the city that he's from, and I really hope, I don't know how the story is gonna go, but I really hope that things do end up well. But on top of it, it's just the voice acting is so impeccable. Like, they already have a star-studded cast. I kind of already knew like it probably was gonna come out amazing, but when you actually like see the dialogue going in between characters, it feels so real. It literally feels like even while I'm playing the game that I am watching a movie. That is how I feel. The next character that we meet is Maëlle. Maëlle, I feel for her, and I kind of want to get to know her more because I still don't know too much, but we do learn that she is someone who was put in an orphanage and kind of essentially became the foster sister of Gustave. So they have this familial bond to some degree, but unfortunately, Maëlle feels almost like a loner in the city of Lumiere. She doesn't feel like she belongs there. She feels, essentially alone. And so I'm curious if we're ever going to maybe see what happened when she was younger. She is one of the youngest members, if not the youngest member within the expedition at 16 years old. So she is a teenager, and that's a lot to go through already, and she's already lost her parents, and now the only thing she has close to her is Gustave, and now that they have this bond that hopefully does not get severed in some way. But I find it really, really intriguing, and it's interesting to know and to hope he has really good character development. I think there's a lot of room to do that there. Lastly, who I can talk about is Lune. I've already seen all over the internet, a lot of people love Lune, and I do too. She's amazing, but she's more of that character that essentially is serious about the expedition. Her mind is set on being a part of this expedition and making sure that we can take down the Paintress. The mission of the expedition is what's most important to her. And we kind of see even a conflict early on between Lune and Gustave, where, Gustave sees a hint that Maëlle is somewhere to be found, and Lune is more taking the side of, but we need to follow protocol, we need to follow the rules. And so she's more of somebody that takes her job seriously. She does get persuaded a little bit, but it's interesting to see that dynamic, and you can already tell from these 3 characters alone that they have something a little bit more about them than meets the eye. But with Lune, I do hope, later on, which I'm sure we'll maybe get a little bit more of her backstory and where she comes from, and what matters most to her. Maybe there's a reason why she's so into the expedition and wants this to work, and for other reasons other than the obvious reason that we would love the Paintress to stop. But she also seems really curious and wants to know things, and I want to see where that goes. But so far, I love these 3 characters, and I really feel for them, and I want to follow them throughout their journey, and I can't wait to meet more characters as we go along. Literally all 3 of them so far, and I'm sure many more that will come down the road of the game. They have such good collaboration with one another, and they play off each other so well. I can't express enough how beautiful the dialogue is thus far, and just how they're able to jump off of each other and really feel like they're in person, almost at least for me, it almost feels like they're in person and they're just having these conversations, and it feels really real. So yeah, I'm just super, super excited, and I can't give them enough praise for their work so far. Now I just want to talk about some gameplay. Dude, I am telling you, turn-based lovers, rise up, because For me, I love turn-based games as is. It's one of my favorite gameplay styles, but I know there's so much conversation, so many people out there that do not like turn-based. They think it's slow. They think they're just kind of sitting around waiting for things to happen, and it's not engaging enough for them. Well, let me tell you, Expedition 33 definitely is engaging. I could not eat a snack in between fights, even if I wanted to, because it's that engaging. Pretty much what the style is, it is a turn-based game at heart, but it does have QTE. As you battle, you essentially still pick things. There's weaknesses for enemies and things like that and of that sort. But for example, if I like do an attack with Gustav and then it's the enemy's turn to hit me back, I have to dodge. I need to parry. And let me tell you, the parry system alone, it feels like how everyone else has been saying. I've heard that the resemblance to Sekiro, and I can agree. I've played Sekiro myself, and it's almost like you have to learn not only the pattern of each boss or enemy that you encounter, but also the rhythm of them. There are so many times where like I'm accidentally clicking the wrong button, or I feel like the attack is coming and then it's not. So it's definitely a learning curve, but I personally like that. It makes it definitely more challenging because you do have to learn kind of the pattern that they're going with. The dodge has a bigger window, so it's easier to move out of the way so that your characters don't get hit. But the parry, what's special about that, you do have to be very precise and hit it at the right time, but you can also get a counter attack. So it's almost like you have to bet and almost gamble those options in front of you in the moment to see like, do I think I have this? Do I have the timing down? Maybe if I just can get this counter attack, that would really just get me out of this situation and I can beat the boss quicker. But it's really fun. You have a lot of decision to make, and it definitely allows different play styles for people to have. But not only is there that, there's this whole system that I'm still learning as well. But essentially each character will have a picto, and you have up to 3 pictos that you can have on the character. You can find these pictos around the world, so exploring is definitely something that you should do so that you can find better pictos for your characters. But they're essentially like abilities that you can attach to them. The other mechanic that I have found within the game thus far is something called a lumina. Luminas will essentially be like passive abilities that you can keep onto your characters. So from the pictos, if you use those pictos in, I believe it's 4 battles, you essentially create a lumina for it. So it's the same abilities that those pictos have in the first place, but the lumina will allow you to actually keep it on that character permanently until you want to take it off. So it's a really cool and interesting way to have certain characters be the way you want. So it really does bring in that RPG element where you can build whatever kind of characters you want based off their stats. Because here's another thing that this game provides. There's a whole different stat. Like there's a skill tree, there's stats. Within the stats, you can actually say like you want Gustav to have bigger hits, or maybe you want Lune to be really good at critical strikes, so you're going to bring up her luck. There's this whole thing, and it reminds me a lot of honestly like a Dark Souls game, because there's camps within this game too. But literally you go to these campsites, or you set up a camp, or there's these checkpoints and there's these flags throughout the levels that you're in, and you can, you know, rearrange whatever attributes you want for each character. After leveling up in a fight, you get 3 points, I believe, that you get to spend every single time at the attribute center or attribute list. And then you also can gain skill points, and skill points also allow like different spells that your characters can have, or different like power moves that they may have. But it's just really, really interesting. And each character so far has kind of like their own ability. Like Gustav has an overpowered charge that's like pretty massive damage. And essentially if you build it up to 10, it gives out the most damage possible. Then you have Lune, who's more of like your magic caster, and she does a lot of like elemental damage, and she collects like these stains from attacking that can also provide more damage or other abilities casted upon those spells that she's casting. And then right now I just found Mael not too long ago, and she has this whole like gimmick of stances, and depending on the enemy's elementals that are on him, or different attacks that have been done to the enemy, then you can use some move that Mael has, and then she changes stances, and each stance has like a different ability on its own. She has a defensive stance where she takes less damage, but she has an offensive one where she does do more damage, but she also takes more damage. And it's just really, really interesting to see like how far this system can really go throughout the game. And I can only imagine that there's going to be so much replayability because of it. So yeah, I'm just really, really excited. But even then, it's like so far in each world that I have been in, it's, how would I describe it? It's pretty linear, but there's different paths to the linearity. So there is going to be one path where like you're going to your main mission and you're continuing the story, but there's kind of like little side things that you can find. There's a little bit of exploration in these linear worlds. But once you're out of those worlds, there's literally an overworld map. And oh my gosh, when I first entered this overworld map, I did not know that this was in the game. Mind you, I have only watched one trailer. It was the announcement trailer of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and I've been waiting for the game ever since, but I didn't want to watch any other videos after that they had posted, because I just really wanted to be completely surprised by anything that I saw within this game. And so when I saw the overworld for the first time, I was like, what? So now I have this other like bigger map that shows all these little worlds that I've been going to thus far. And then even in the overworld, there's like secret dungeons and there's enemies walking around. And I'm just like, I kid you not, there's like something new that keeps jumping into the game every single time. Because then even later, as I was battling this other enemy that looked pretty scary, by the way, now within the fight, I can jump and do a counterattack. So, you know, like there's just something new every single time. And I just can't even imagine like what's to come later down the road. Like, I'm so excited. I don't know if I can stress enough, like how amazing just within not only the first hour through the prologue, but literally the first 6 hours of this game that I played. Like I said it even before I even played the game, that I have a gut feeling that this game could be the game of the year. And I really hope that all the love and praise that this game has been getting so far for being out for one day really brings other people to want to play it as well. And also like just show the support of this development team, Sandfall Interactive, and to just like really, really show it some love. And I hope that this also doesn't, you know, stray away those people that don't really like turn-based. And I hope if not, it brings them in, because I feel like this is gonna be amazing. I just want to talk about some things that I encountered that weren't my favorite things so far within the game, but let me tell you right now, it's a very small list. I've been loving like pretty much everything. So in terms of playability, so far the game has only crashed on me once, and it did like a full crash. I am playing on PC on Steam, so it might be different for people who are playing on console. I'm not too sure. But even my best friend who's playing the game as well, she said her game froze 2 times, but it didn't do a fully crash. It went back to where she could play it and everything. But I just kind of wanted to share that. But honestly, it hasn't been too bothersome. Again, for me, it only crashed once, and the game does save relatively quickly, because by the way, there's no manual saves, there's only auto saves, but it pretty much auto saves like all the time. But yeah, luckily it did crash, but I was able to just get back to where I was, so it wasn't a big deal for me. Another thing that I kind of wish, I see where they're going. There's no map of any sort when you're in these little worlds, and even the overworld map as well. So for these little sections that you're in, these little like worlds, I don't really know what to call them as of right now, but let's just say like the main levels that you arrive in, I understand like wanting to just have exploration be its thing, and there's no UI on the screen, which I do love that because it does immerse you a lot more. The sucky thing is like you don't exactly know which way the main mission is, and if you're like me, I try to not go to the main mission because I would like to do all the side stuff that I can possibly find. So there's not really an indication. Once you like walk into a story progressed path, it's going to change into like a cinematic cutscene, so you're kind of like stuck doing that and finishing that. But there are other paths that you can walk to, and unfortunately it doesn't really like indicate where those are. So sometimes there could be moments where you kind of walk to a story progression area, and then you'll have to wait till you finish a certain part of that to be able to come back. So backtracking will be a thing. But the other I guess you could say, flaw that I have with it is just you can get lost a little bit sometimes unless you hit a button that brings up this like short little look at the UI while you're exploring. There's a little compass on the screen that points like where north is, but I'm not usually like clicking that constantly to know which direction I'm going in the moment. I'm kind of just running around, which I think is part of the idea that they wanted to go with. It's not that big of a deal. I think like eventually maybe you'll just see your environment and you'll know, but we'll have to see until we get later in the game if some of those places get a lot more bigger and maybe it's a little bit harder to navigate. Something else that I noticed was, again, it's very, very minimal. Pretty much with, although the voice acting is amazing and like I love it, like I wouldn't change a thing, some of the lip syncing for the characters doesn't really match the dialogue. I don't know if that's something that can be fixed with a patch or anything like that, but this lip syncing is a little bit off. It can be distracting a little bit sometimes, but it's not too bad to where it's like taking me out of the immersion that I'm having. Lastly, I feel like something that really stuck out to me is, although I think the UI is so beautiful and I think it fits, you know, the theme so well, it kind of looks like painted marks, so almost like the paintress. It has something to do with the UI. It can be sometimes, at least for me, difficult to kind of know what I'm selecting. I think what I wish I had is like when you're moving the cursor around, that it had kind of like a highlighted moment over the things that you're on, just because sometimes I can't tell you how many times I thought I was like in a Lumina section where I was trying to look at the Luminas, but then I clicked a Picto. Sometimes like moving that cursor around could make me a little bit lost, but I think as a whole, I think it's pretty organized for the most part, but I think there are some like enhancements that could be done to just make it more clear as to what I'm doing. But yeah, I feel like for the most part, those are all the, like, I guess you can call them flaws that I've noticed thus far, because honestly, like, I haven't had an issue with like anything. Like, I pretty much love everything that I've seen so far. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video through. These were just my very first impressions of playing the game thus far. Again, I'm only 6 hours in the game, so there's so much more game. I hear that there's about like 30 to 40 hours, but I think if you do like some of the side stuff and all that, you can extend that time a little bit farther. So that's what I hope to do. But I hope you guys are just as excited for this game as I am, or if anything I said maybe intrigued you to maybe check the game out for yourself, that would mean the world to me. I do apologize, my thoughts were definitely all over the place because I just wanted to sit here and talk in front of the camera and just like gush about what I'm thinking so far with this game. So I hope most of it made sense, but thank you guys again for watching. I really appreciate you, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. So make sure you like, subscribe, and comment down below, and I will see you guys next time. Happy gaming. S'en va dans l'oubli éternel, et Gustave Dom Guardiam, dilim, dilim.